Eugene Mulero with Transport Topics, and we're here with Congressman Sam Graves, Republican of Missouri. He's the chairman of the House Highways and Transit Subcommittee. Thank you for being on the program,
Absolutely.
sir. This is Infrastructure Week, and there's been a lot of talk about everything's on the table when it
Yes.
comes to infrastructure funding. We heard it from your counterparts over on the Senate and even Secretary Chow, and you have suggested that as well. Can you help us understand what everything's on the table really means?
Well, it means everything.
Okay.
That comes from a possible increase in the gas tax to, which I don't actually think will happen, to P3s, public-private partnerships, tolling, VMT, vehicle miles traveled tax. We're looking at replacing the gas tax because it is so regressive. We've got more and more vehicles on the road that are more efficient, and we've got a lot of vehicles on the road that simply don't pay any gas tax. So we're looking at changing that altogether. It could be a hybrid of those things too as well. So, but everything's on the table and we're taking a look at it.
When you're saying the secretary did not rule out the gas tax
Right.
this week, and as well as your colleague Bill Schuster, the chairman of the committee, didn't rule it out as well, you're saying that you don't think the prospects are good.
It's a possibility, but I think it would be hard to move an increase in the gas tax, through this Congress. And the fact of the matter is, too, we're going to see more and more of those vehicles that don't pay any gas tax, and we need to recover the dollars from those vehicles using the road. So I think we need to move away from the gas tax altogether.
And you're meaning energy efficient vehicles,
Yes.
alternative fuel vehicles.
Yes.
You are the author with your colleague, the delegate from Washington, D.C., that calling on the Ways and Means Committee to put a fix to the Highway Trust Fund.
Yes.
Tell us what that letter is and the status of the letter right now.
Basically, it asked the Ways and Means Committee and Chairman Brady to be able to put a title in the tax reform package to be able to address the Highway Trust Fund issue that we're looking at. And we'd at least like a holding spot so that we can get something in there to address the Highway Trust Fund moving forward. We are seeing a depletion in that trust fund, and so we need to figure out other ways, as we talked about, other ways to fund it. And it has to go through Ways and Means. The Transportation Committee will authorize it, but Ways and Means has to actually move the funding package through.
What is the support level? What kind of feedback are you getting from your colleagues in the House?
We've got a lot of co-signers on that letter, so we're hoping to get half the House trying to push Ways and Means to be able to do that. So I'm talking to the chairman and the committee itself, and hopefully I'm feeling pretty good at least about being able to get that title in the tax reform package.
So we had a supplemental for the trust fund in the 2015 highway law, and in 3 years it's projected to run low on funds. That's the DOT projection. Aside from you, do you sense some urgency on the part of the Republican leadership in the House and your colleagues on the Ways and Means Committee?
I don't know if I see it in the Ways and Means Committee because I don't think that they realize just how important this is or how dire this is. At least in the Transportation Committee leadership, they're seeing that and they understand it. So it's just a matter of education. We got to let other members of the House know and other members of other committees know that this is important, that the Highway Trust Fund is depleting and we need to figure out a way to make sure it's sustainable for the long term. And in transportation, we have true trust funds. These aren't dollars that go into general revenue and then are pulled back out. These are true trust funds that we pay into when we purchase gas at the pump, and that money stays in there for projects, for transportation projects. So it's not money that's used in other places. It is used for transportation. We need to make sure those funds are viable.
Here at the House of Representatives, the chamber advanced a healthcare reform bill that now goes on to the Senate. Now is tax reform and infrastructure are on the docket.
Yes.
Give us your sense of where we are on tax reform when you talk to your colleagues, and when should we expect working on the infrastructure bill?
So the tax reform bill is being worked on right now, and we'll probably see it on the floor later this spring or this summer.
Okay.
First part of this summer. Now, when it comes to transportation, we'll be working on it at the same time. The administration has indicated that they're going to come out with their plan or what their details are for their infrastructure package. Is going to be later this month, possibly the first part of June. And we'll probably take it up on the floor of the House in the third quarter. So I'm expecting, September, maybe October. We could dip over into the fourth quarter, but September, October timeframe, the House will pick up the infrastructure package then as well.
You're saying June. Have you gotten any indication from the White House on some details? I know Secretary Chow was talking about no details.
No, we haven't gotten any details. Everything's in broad strokes right now, and they're putting together. They've just gotten their team into place because it takes a while to get the government in place, and Secretary Chow's just now gotten her deputy secretary in place, and so they're putting their team together so they can start working on that.
Jeffrey Rosen.
Yep.
I wanted you to react to what Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming said this week during Infrastructure Week. He told reporters that his committee is already working on an infrastructure bill, and then his colleague, Senator Inhofe of Oklahoma, told reporters that he would like the Senate to take the lead on that. What are your thoughts on that? Should the Senate
either house can take the lead, and both chambers will have a little bit different version of it. We'll have to conference that out, but the Senate's probably wanting to get started as well as the House. The Senate's still got a lot of work to do, though, when it comes to appointments. They're spending a tremendous amount of time just getting 3 appointments a week done right now. So I don't know if they'll have the time to do that. They could do it in committee, obviously, but not necessarily schedule that floor time. But the Senate will have their own version anyway, and both chambers will probably work on it at the same time.
Going back to the Transportation Committee here in the House, the chairman also said that he told me that he definitely is going to have a markup this year. And he was saying that he expects to have a strong debate sometime in the fall. Your conversations with Chairman Schuster, what is it that, when you guys talk about, what is it that you would like to see in this package?
Well, there's, obviously we've got to take a look at all modes of transportation, highways, bridges, inland waterways, pipelines, rail, aviation, and how we set those priorities and how we, start working through those different modes of transportation and dividing up those dollars. That's going to take a lot of time to work through that and try to figure out, what those priorities are going to be. But we've talked to the committee, and we're asking for their input. What would you like to see done? What would you like to see in this package? And we're starting to get that feedback and that input now. So that's part of the process that we're going through. But it is going to be a massive package, a very comprehensive package, and obviously we're looking forward to it.
So we had a title for freight grants in the 2015 law, and then the administration has been, in their initial budget proposal, they were talking about eliminating funding for infrastructure grants. The secretary in the Senate this week somewhat walked back some of that sentiment, but what do you see as the future for these types of specific grants for infrastructure, freight, or other modals?
That's hard to say, actually, and I know the administration's walked back on that a little bit, and that is the way that we deploy those dollars, at least some of those dollars at this point. I would like to see us get back to a more traditional system where we have projects in the bill that Congress itself authorizes. That is our responsibility within the Constitution, and not a bureaucrat or the administration's job to be able to deploy those dollars. So I would like to see a more traditional way of doing that rather than going to the grant system that we have right now as a result of the last highway bill. But we're visiting about that and talking about that. That's going to take a change within the Republican conference rules to be able to do that. But that's getting into the weeds. Right now, the way we deploy it is through some of those grants, and we have a whole bunch of different ones. The freight grant's just one of those. So it's pretty complicated.
There was so much. I was somewhat surprised. That there was so much pushback for giving up the infrastructure Tiger grants. There was, even over in the Senate at 2 back-to-back hearings, the senators from both sides of the aisle were praising how great the Tiger grants were.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Tiger grants are they can be very, very competitive and can be very political, depending on who's in the White House. We'd like to get back to Congress making the decisions and members of Congress making the decisions for their own districts, on how that money is deployed and where it's going to go in those districts, rather than, making communities or states fight after these grants and then making it a political issue within an administration, whichever administration it is.
With so much happening with tax reform, the agenda getting full, there were some transportation groups this week that did not share some optimism about the T&I committee and Ways and Means really having time to take on infrastructure. They appreciate the effort and the enthusiasm, but they just look at what's happening in the news, and they don't really think that something's going to happen this year. They're thinking maybe 2018. What do you say to those groups?
Well, we're going to have something this year. The chairman's going to have a markup in T&I this year on the transportation bill. So I'm pretty confident about that. And barring anything catastrophic happening, we'll see a transportation bill coming out of the House at least this year.
2017.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask you, when there's going to be some leadership transitions over at the T&I committee, who do you think is the most qualified person to succeed, Chairman Schuster when he is no longer the chairman?
Well, I'm going to interview for it. I'm going after that position. Obviously, that assumes that we stay in the majority. That can always change as well. But I'm going to be going after that position. I've got the seniority on the House committee. I've been there the entire time I've been in Congress, and I know the process inside and out. And so I'm going to be working real hard to do that.
What would the T&I committee look under your leadership?
Well, we're going to defer at least at this point. I've got some ideas on things that I would like to do and different ideas, and we'll talk about that later if the time comes.
Okay. Chairman, thank you for joining us on Transport Topics, and check out this full interview at ttnews.com.